The anime begins in the Demon King's castle, where the heroes group is gathered. Yuga asks if everyone is ready. Mikan mentions that she has researched all the abilities of the Demon King and his followers, and is certain that Yuga will come out victorious. He tells the group to advance, and everyone agrees. At that moment, the castle gate opens, and several servants of the Demon King appear. After defeating them all, the group reaches Yuki's chamber, who asks if they are all heroes, and if they are there to defeat the Demon King. He states that if that is the case, it's a pity, as they will have to defeat him before they go to the Demon King. Mikan throws a fireball towards Yuki, but he easily stops it, saying her magic is weak. Raven then charges at him with his sword, attempting to cut Yuki, but he dodges all the strikes and counterattacks with a kick. Cecilia uses support magic on Yuga, who attacks with Excalibur, but is easily defeated by Yuki's endless darkness magic, and they all fall to the ground. When Yuki is about to use magic on them, he becomes smitten with Cecilia, realizing she is exactly his type. At that moment, Yuki's subordinates appear, asking if they should finish them off. Yuki is startled and comments that he ordered them to stay hidden. Sike mentions that they had been watching the girl on the ground all along and asks what happened. Yuki tries to cover up, saying he was thinking about what to do with them. Duke suggests they should kill them, but Yuki refuses, ordering them to throw the heroes out of the castle. In the nearby human village, they comply, grumbling that it's a drag, and that he will get another scolding from the Demon King. A month later, Yuki is summoned to the Demon King's throne. Izayasir asks how many times the heroes group has challenged him and lost. Yuki answers that it has been 13 times. Zaikir remarks that if they lost to someone like him, they never scared him at all. The Demon King asks why Yuki doesn't just finish off the heroes group. Yuki replies that they are just insects and not worth killing. However, the Demon King says that if he doesn't want to do it, he will assign the task to his subordinates, knowing they are no match for the heroes group, and takes on the task himself. After that, he reflects that the heroes group is strong enough even to defeat the Demon Lord, as he is so strong it almost feels like cheating. Since he is a demon, he cannot let the Demon King die and decides to finish everything in the next confrontation. The following day, the heroes group returns and says they will put an end to him. Yuga and Raven charge at Yuki but are easily blocked. He uses dark magic on them and throws both against the wall. Cecilia says she will heal them and asks Mikana to buy time. Mikana casts a fire spell, but it has no effect and realizes that Yuki is too strong. Cecilia heals Yuga and Raven. Yuki starts laughing at them, saying that no matter how hard they fight, they will be thrown into darkness every time. Yuga asks for cover for Cecilia and uses the sacred sword technique Excalibur, but is unsuccessful. Yuki says they are not capable of defeating him and makes a proposal. He asks them to leave the priestess behind, and they may pass. Yuga refuses, but Mikana says to accept the proposal, as they cannot defeat him and need to reach the Demon King. Yuga refuses again, and Mikana states that a priestess is not more important than saving the world. Cecilia asks them to go, saying she will be all right. Yuga agrees, saying that shortly after defeating the Demon King, they will come back for her. Yuki opens the door and they advance. When they are alone, Cecilia asks why he asked for just her to stay. Since alone, she is incapable of even scratching him, but she says she will not give up. She uses holy magic against him, and he defends himself, asking her to listen to what he has to say. He introduces himself, but Cecilia does not understand why he is introducing himself to the person he intends to kill. Yuki explains that if he wanted to kill the group, he could have done so since their first encounter. She asks what he wants, and Yuki says he fell in love with her at first sight and asks her to date him. Cecilia is shocked and refuses, leaving Yuki completely depressed. She points her staff at him, saying she will not lower her guard because of this cheap trick, but Yuki does not resist. He says that now that he has been rejected, he no longer cares about anything, explaining that even though he is alive, he can only stay in that place, as he can only leave the castle to attack human villages. And he has no interest in it. Cecilia tells him to stop lying, as all humans are cruel. Yuki reveals that, even though he looks like a demon, he reincarnated from another world. She doesn't understand, and he explains that, on the inside, he is human. Cecilia asks why he obeys the Demon King's orders, and he responds that if he killed the Demon King, he would be the next king, and he has no interest in that. As a result of his choices, he spent days in seclusion, but upon meeting her, he fell in love and kept thinking about her all the time. It was the first time he felt alive, but now that he has been rejected, nothing else matters. Cecilia tells him that if he has a human heart, he should use that power for the good of the people, and invites him to go out into the world with her. Shortly thereafter, we can already see our heroes being decorated for their bravery, as it seems they really managed to defeat the Demon King. King Darth of Clarines is responsible for this, and he needs to do so, as from now on, a new era begins in which humans can live in peace. While everyone is celebrating, our dear Yuki is in the outskirts of the city, as he plans to get to know this place better to be by Cecilia's side. With this determination, he goes there and rips off his own horn, feeling an absurd pain. Meanwhile, the people continue to celebrate our heroes, but we can notice something curious. The sorceress seems interested in the hero, who, in turn, completely ignores her and pays much more attention to Cecilia, saying it was thanks to her that they won this battle, and let's face it, that's not even a lie. Meanwhile, our protagonist arrives at the Adventurers Guild. He wants to register, but the person at the reception is not very friendly. He doesn't even know what the correct procedure is, but finds a sheet and says Yuki needs to fill out the form with his name, age, and a signature, stating that if anything happens during the job, the guild will not be responsible. This guy ends up registering him as Yuki, 21 years old, delivers his guild card, and informs him that he will start at rank F, the lowest among adventurers. I think this is already common knowledge, but he can rise to rank S, which is the highest, granting him more reputation, better missions, and of course more money, cash, bills, dough. This man named Kleiman doesn't seem very eager to work, but at least he wishes Yuki good luck in his adventure. Later that night, our protagonist completes a few missions, gets some money, and starts thinking about what he can do from now on. But his biggest plan is, once again, to confess his feelings to Cecilia. He wants her to accept his love no matter what, and ends up laughing like a madman once again. And as expected, with his strength, it doesn't take long for rumors to start spreading about a boy who is leveling up at an incredibly fast pace. The best part is that Yuki doesn't stop working. He always goes to talk to Kleiman to take on his missions. This ends up irritating the man since he is not the only one working there, although, according to Yuki, it's precisely because Kleiman, ironically, works especially fast despite being lazy. What he didn't expect was that Kleiman would also be so curious, as he soon asks who the hell Yuki is. He tries to say he's just an ordinary adventurer, but Kleiman thinks that's nonsense. A week has passed, and he's already gone from rank F to rank D, so there's nothing ordinary about that. Our protagonist gets scared, thinking he will be discovered, but Kleiman says that, well, at least he's not doing anything illegal, so they end up putting that aside. Still, they make it very clear that the reception is not his job. At that moment, a hooded girl appears asking to cancel all those missions. When she turns around, Yuki immediately realizes it's Cecilia and is completely enchanted. Kleiman, of course, also knows her and asks what the hell she's doing there. The girl tries not to draw attention, but tells Yuki that they need to talk, asking him to follow her to her house. And of course, our protagonist sees no problem with that. However, as soon as they arrive at the residence, we notice that the guards are also very fond of Cecilia, especially one of them who, upon seeing a man descend from the carriage, asks who the hell he is. The companion tries to calm him down, but at that moment, Cecilia appears visibly irritated, saying that Yuki is her friend. This shatters the guard's heart, who ends up leaving without being able to do anything about it. The two enter the house and talk more calmly. Cecilia had wanted to talk to him for some time, but hadn't had the opportunity. Our protagonist says it's no problem, as he has been having a lot of fun as an adventurer. And curiously, it's precisely because of this that Cecilia wanted to talk to him, and he has become the man of the moment. People are commenting that a rookie adventurer is absurdly ranking up within the guild, and that's why she sought him out. And it's precisely about the guild that she wants to talk. Suddenly, she asks him to please leave the Adventurers Guild. Obviously, Yuki is surprised and wants to know why. According to her, this happens because, as he knows, the hero has defeated the Demon King. However, that doesn't mean that all threats in the world have disappeared, which makes sense since defeating the Demon King doesn't automatically eliminate all other dangers. He says she is right, but Cecilia explains that those aren't the real problem. Now, the human kingdoms have started fighting among themselves for supremacy. The signs of this have already begun to appear. For example, the hero has been receiving numerous engagement proposals from various different nations, and he thinks this is happening just because he has suddenly become popular. But that's not exactly why she is bringing this up. There are nations that want to have all the military strength and the maximum workforce possible at their disposal, and that's exactly why she came to talk to him. As Yuki is absurdly ranking up, he will definitely end up among the few rank S adventurers of the nation. But when that happens, all eyes will be on him. At some point, revealing his demonic power could be used as a tool, and thus people would want to conquer the world, which, ironically, would turn him into a demon king once again. That's why she asks him not to attract too much attention, which is difficult since our protagonist needs to pay bills and survive. However, Cecilia says that in this case, she could hire him personally. Of course, she doesn't have enough resources to maintain a rank S adventurer, but in return, He will do everything in his power for her. She only wants to do this because she truly cares about the peace of the nation, to the point of even bowing before our protagonist, something he doesn't like at all, telling her never to do that again in her life. He makes it clear that even if a beautiful lady appears and confesses her feelings for him, he will never accept, as the only person admired by his eyes is her. This ends up drawing good laughter from poor Cecilia, as he's once again putting on a real show. During the times he was a demon, this makes her feel much more at ease. Then she says he can continue working as an adventurer, or she agrees, and also claims she will try not to stand out too much. At that moment, someone knocks at the door looking for Cecilia. Then we are introduced to Aquarim, her mother. Our protagonist becomes incredibly nervous in front of her. Aquarim apologizes to Yuki for the doorman's behavior and tells him not to worry, as Sophia, one of her maids, will take care of disciplining him. Sophia asks Aquarim how many bones she should leave intact, which leaves both Cecilia and Yuki extremely worried. Getting to the point, Aquarim asks Sophia to step outside for a moment and, alone, asks her daughter if she talked to him about it. Apparently, Cecilia has received several marriage proposals, and to make matters worse, one of them came from the hero. This causes our protagonist to completely lose his patience and start cursing him in the air. The mother clearly notices that Yuki is in love with her daughter, and seeing that it was no longer possible to hide it, he doesn't even try. Then, Aquarim steps forward and asks if in that case he would like to marry Cecilia. Obviously, he was about to say yes, but he notices his friend's expression. Therefore, he holds back and says that he has actually already confessed before and was rejected. For now, he only intends to work hard, achieve good deeds, and when he feels ready, confess. Again, something that is starting to bore the mother a little. It was obvious that she would try to encourage something, but Yuki apologizes if he offended her, and he says he wants to respect Cecilia's feelings. By doing this, interestingly enough, he passes the mother's test, as she would never hand over her daughter to just anyone who came along. Even so, seeing how he behaves, Quarim feels more at ease, realizing that he is not a bad company, and hopes that he will get along with her daughter. With that, she takes her leave, and Cecilia also says goodbye to Yuki. But before that, quite nervously, she asks if he can do her a small favor, to allow her to call him by his name. She thinks it might be too bold of a request, since they barely know each other, but it's no problem for her. In return, she will also call him Yuki, which makes our protagonist very happy. Sometime later, Yuki finds himself easily dodging the attacks of a cockatrice, and after cooking it with impact thunder and collecting its feathers, prepares to deliver the mission. He remembers that Clement had said this mission would take an entire week, but for him, it took just a day. However, suddenly, he is attacked by his old group, and, upon recognizing them, warns Sid not to attack him, because it's Yuki. He makes it clear that he is relieved to see them alive. Still, his old group asks for explanations, since now he seems human. They ask what the hell happened to his horn and wings, revealing that they were very worried about him as he disappeared when the Demon King died. Yuki then reveals that he confessed to the priestess of the hero's group and was rejected, but now he is living as a human adventurer. His old companions are perplexed. Nevertheless, Yuki says that now they can live as they wish. However, they refuse to do whatever they like, because they intend to accompany him. Moreover, they also want to meet his human crush, to which he responds that this will not be possible. But they say that if he can change his appearance, then so can they, and there's nothing to worry about. Yuki is not very convinced, but he ends up accepting. In another scene during dinner, Cecilia scolds him, asking what kind of bastard he is for plucking all the feathers from a harpy, who is still a girl, even if it's to disguise her. And Yuki apologizes. Sometime later, while having small cups of tea, Cecilia comments that they don't seem like monsters, to which Duke replies that they actually are. He is a Dula ram, Rapinus is a harpy, and City is a red. Yuki reprimands him for talking too much. The opposite of what a Dula ram would do, Duke responds that all of this is Yuki's fault, revealing that he used to hate him. He remembers that when they were in the Demon King's castle, Yuki was famous for being a hermit, even when his superior Psycheo ordered him to attack humans. What did he say? That he should get out of that damn room. Upon hearing this, Duke found it very inappropriate for a demon to act that way and tried to correct him forcefully, but ended up ripping off his head and shouting all kinds of things, and that's how he ended up as he is now. What matters is that now he respects Yuki more, just like City Happiness. However, at that moment, they realize that neither of them is around, so they quickly leave to find them before they cause any disaster. The first one they encounter is City, who is with Yuki's mother-in-law. She asks if he knows the boy, and he replies that he is his friend and apologizes if he caused any trouble. The mother-in-law responds that she loves children and that he was running around the garden earlier, so she decided to accompany him, but then she got tired and ended up falling asleep. Cecilia asks her mother if there wasn't a girl with him, and she replies that Sophia took her inside the house. The boys become worried, and on the other side, we see Sophia teaching how to be a maid, praising Rap for having talent. Upon entering the mansion, Sophia introduces the new maid who will start working from that day. And what does she ask of her? What the hell is she doing dressed like that? Cecilia explains the situation to Sophia, who apologizes as she thought she was the new maid arriving that day. And what does she ask Rap to do? To change quickly, but she refuses, saying that she now wants to work as a maid. After exchanging a glance with Sophia, she agrees and takes her to the staff quarters. Sometime later, at dusk, already settled in the mansion, the boys bid her farewell and ask her to do an excellent job. At that moment, Yuki's mother-in-law approaches to whisper that her daughter, besides working as a priestess, also needs to attend to VIPs, which is why she is very tired. For this reason, she will give her a day off the next day and hopes that he will invite her out. Indeed, the next day, he is already waiting for Cecilia to go out with her. He is clearly a bit nervous, because he knows that this is basically a parental-approved outing for her. When Cecilia finally arrives, Yuki is completely taken aback by her casual outfit and beauty. She is wearing different clothes than usual, and he can't stop thinking about how well she pulls it off. Cecilia notices that he isn't saying anything, so Yuki quickly compliments her glasses. She explains that they are a disguise, because if people recognize her as a member of the hero group, everything would turn into chaos. Yuki easily understands the life of someone famous, saying that it must be hard to live like that, and Cecilia simply apologizes for making him accompany her in this. Yuki immediately brushes off the topic and says he will cooperate with her to make this a good day off. The two walk through the city, and the first thing she notices is that there is a new cake at the bakery. Cecilia looks through the window, sees the many lovely cakes on display, and asks Yuki to stop by later to try some. Yuki agrees, and they continue walking through the city, enjoying their time together. Cecilia has fun observing the flowers and some cats, while Yuki firmly thinks that she is the only cute thing his eyes can see. She also decides to try on some clothes in a store, and Yuki doesn't hesitate to compliment her. After that, they continue their stroll, and Cecilia says that, thanks to him, she feels the fatigue of everyday life fading away and sees this as an achievement. Noticing a jewelry store, she invites him to go in and check out some accessories. Cecilia happily agrees, but her voice is instantly recognized by Yuga, who is also in disguise along with Makana. He tries to call her by name without thinking, but Makana immediately stops him, saying that everyone will know who she is if he shouts like that. Yuga apologizes and decides to approach Cecilia to greet her, asking what brought her there. He explains that they took a day off for the first time in a long time to go out and have fun, so he would love for her to join them. Yuki just stands by her side, wondering if that guy is pretending not to see him. Cecilia quickly apologizes and explains that she is with just one friend today. Yuga then immediately recognizes Yuki's presence and leans in to take a closer look at his face, asking if they have met somewhere before, and Yuga, who gets a little nervous, says it must be his imagination. Cecilia immediately agrees, not wanting Yuga to discover who Yuki is. Yuga easily brushes it off and says that she can go with them then. Without giving her a chance to respond, he pulls her into the jewelry store before they can protest. Both Yuki and Makana are left outside, and Makana complains that her first meeting with Yuga in a long time has been ruined like this. She refers to Yuki as a boring civilian, but hopes that things work out between him and the priestess. Once inside the store, Yuki watches Yuga and remembers that Cecilia turned down the hero's marriage proposal, but that he is apparently still interested in her. Still, Yuki refuses to be discouraged just because the other guy is good-looking. He is determined not to give up and enters the store, approaching Cecilia and asking if she has found any accessories she likes. Cecilia is happy to see him again and apologizes for leaving him outside, but Yuki minimizes it, saying he is going to buy her a gift since they are there. This takes her by surprise, so Yuki reassures her and explains that it is to thank her for what happened last time. Cecilia smiles and decides to accept, but Yuga is not pleased with their little interaction and interjects that he will choose something for Makana and for Cecilia as well. Yuki wonders if he is trying to compete with him, but doesn't see him as a threat and ends up fixing his gaze on a beautiful necklace with a blue gem. He picks up the necklace and tells Cecilia it would look great on her. She likes it a lot, feeling a bit nervous. Cecilia says it's wonderful, but at that exact moment, Yuga appears with a huge hair ornament he has chosen for her. Makana is not impressed at all, but Yuga is completely confident and proudly tells Cecilia that it is the most expensive item in the store. Yuki is not impressed either, as the most expensive is not always the best, especially in this case. Ignoring all common sense, Yuga carelessly takes off Cecilia's hat to put the accessory in her hair. With that, by removing her disguise, the people in the store immediately recognize her, as well as Yuga and Makana. In a matter of seconds, everyone is surrounded by civilians, and Cecilia says it's time to leave the store. The furious crowd takes everyone away, leaving Yuki behind since no one knows him. He starts running through the city, knowing he needs to find Cecilia as quickly as possible. Shortly after, he encounters another crowd, but this time it surrounds Raven, the knight from the heroes group, and he doesn't quite remember, but feels he has seen that handsome man before. A man next to him informs that Raven is the former swordsman of the heroes group who has been promoted to captain of the knights. Then, Yuki finally remembers him as the silent swordsman who fought alongside the hero back then. It seems he is having trouble now, so Yuki decides to help him and shouts that he saw the hero going in the opposite direction. The crowd immediately rushes after the hero, leaving Raven finally alone. Yuki seizes the opportunity to run with him to an empty alley, knowing they won't be found there. Raven nervously searches through his pockets, and Yuki assumes he won't receive any thanks, so he decides to leave and advises him to use a disguise the next time he goes out. Raven quickly stops him before he leaves and is surprised to hear his voice for the first time, as it sounds much more feminine than he expected. He finally understands why Raven can't speak in front of people. Raven asks if he won't mock him since he knows his voice doesn't sound very masculine, and Yuki smiles and says everyone has a part of themselves they don't want others to point out, like him being a demon. Raven comments that Yuki is a rare kind because most people laugh when they hear his voice. Yuki assures him he won't laugh and tries to leave once again. However, Raven stops him for the second time and nervously asks if he would like to be his friend. This clearly surprises Yuki, so Raven rushes to explain that the only people who haven't laughed at his voice were his mother and his cousin. Yuki smiles and gladly accepts. Then, Yuki begins to search for Cecilia throughout the city, as he doesn't want their first meeting to end that way. Cecilia is also looking for him, but finds a little boy crying alone and decides to help him, using her healing magic on his scraped knee. Even so, the boy keeps crying loudly because his mother isn't around at that moment, and who appears with his exaggerated dramatics, tells the boy that he will look everywhere until he finds his mother. The boy finally stops crying, not knowing how to react, but Cecilia immediately scolds Yuki. Both Yuki and Cecilia feel relieved that the boy is no longer crying, and then start searching for his mother around the town. Meanwhile, Yuga continues looking for Cecilia and drags Makana everywhere. Makana tries to convince him to go home, saying that it's going to turn into chaos and that they'll be surrounded again. She claims that the priestess has probably already returned home, but Yuga gets annoyed with her insistence and says that, unlike her, he actually cares about Cecilia. He quickly lets go of Makana's hand and runs off, determined to find her. Makana just wonders what is happening. After all, she is still there with him. A little later, Yuga finally finds Cecilia and Yuki, who manage to locate the boy's mother. However, when he turns to tell Makana that he found them, she has already gone. She has finally learned to value herself. The next day, Celia informs Yuki that Cecilia has fallen ill and explains that, besides the fatigue she deals with daily, the commotion from the previous day pushed her beyond her limits. Yuki feels guilty immediately, but Celia reassures him and says that Cecilia just has a mild cold and that it's not his fault at all. On the other hand, after Yuga had been dragged out amidst all that chaos, he insisted on taking care of Cecilia, and she doesn't even know how he found out about that. Celia smiles and says that Cecilia told her everything Yuki did for her, so he can go visit her if he wants. Sophia guides him through the mansion to Cecilia's room, and from her reaction, it is clear that she wasn't expecting any visitors. Cecilia becomes extremely nervous and asks them to wait, but Sophia calms her down and says she has already stored her stuffed animal. This makes Cecilia even more embarrassed, as it was a state secret. Sophia ignores it and asks Yuki to come in, and what's entering for the first time into Cecilia's room and sitting on the stool by the bed apologizes for what happened, but she says it wasn't his fault anyway, and what's insisting and explaining that he knew she was exhausted, so he was wrong to drag her around like that. Cecilia smiles and decides to play along, saying that then the blame really was his, and since her day off was ruined because of that, she wants him to go out with her on her next day off to make up for it. And what? Obviously not expecting this, soon gets excited, as that is clearly a promise of another date. His dramatic side shows up again when he says he won't disappoint her again. However, as soon as she starts coughing, Sophia doesn't hesitate to kick him out. As Yuki walks away from the mansion, he suddenly finds Raven, who nervously asks him for advice, as there's someone he likes. There's a girl who didn't make fun of his voice, and even praised it, saying she envied him. Yuki immediately understands why he fell for her and decides to boost his confidence, reminding him of who he is and how handsome he is, assuring him that if that girl praised his voice, then he has nothing to worry about and should definitely make the first move. Luckily, it seems to have worked. Raven drops the disguise and thanks him for the advice, saying it helped him find his courage and that he's going to confess his feelings to the girl. Then, after Raven starts walking straight, what's running through his mind is why he's heading towards the mansion, realizing at that moment that he was probably talking about Cecilia. Yuki becomes desperate for having encouraged a rival, but thinks that she wouldn't accept that proposal easily. However, he remembers that they were part of the hero group and starts imagining Raven protecting Cecilia. A second later, Raven returns looking like a zombie. Yuki asks how it went, to which Raven replies that he'd rather be dead, continuing to walk like a zombie. Later, Yuki goes back to Cecilia's house under the pretense of being worried about her. Sophia comments that he just left, and what's observing that the situation seems completely suspicious. Sophia immediately refuses his visit, and he sends her to come back another day. He asks if Raven has just left, and the maid confirms, saying he asked to see Happiness. Upon realizing that Raven confessed to Happiness, Yuki is shocked and decides to go see her. Yuki asks if Raven came to see her, and she confirms. Yuki comments that he is her friend and asks if he confessed to her. When Happiness confirms, Yuki asks what she replied. She says she only said impossible, and Yuki is surprised by her insensitivity, but he says if she doesn't like him, there's nothing to be done. Happiness says that's not it, but when bombarded with questions from her captain, she runs off, saying again that it's impossible. That night in his room, Yuki meets with Sick and Duke to talk about Happiness and Raven. Sick asks who Raven is, and Yuki recalls that he was the swordsman from the heroes group. He remembers him as the human who always lost to the captain. Duke asks why Yuki is making a human get close to Happiness, since even if humans say they like her, it shouldn't stir positive feelings in her. Harpies are beautiful by nature, and for this reason, humans capture them as slaves. Additionally, there are many humans who hunt them for their feathers. Raven only joined the Lord Demon's army because Duke saved her from a human trying to enslave her. Sick comments that even with that happening in the past, he believes she doesn't hate humans, as there are also kind humans, and she voluntarily became a maid in the human mansion. Yuki agrees and tells Duke not to worry, as Raven doesn't seem like a bad guy, and Happiness herself must have noticed that. The next day, Yuki goes to the Adventurers Guild and looks for Kleeman. The receptionist, upon seeing him, asks if he is the person who is always talking to the vice master of the guild. Yuki is shocked to hear the term vice master and asks who she is talking about. She confirms that Kleeman is the vice leader and understands what Yuki is feeling. He asks where he is right now, and the receptionist comments that he is hospitalized. Yuki goes to the hospital to visit him. Kleeman thanks him for the visit, and Yuki asks what happened to him. The man replies that he accidentally made his wife angry, and that was the result. He explains that their wedding anniversary was recently, and for that reason, he went to choose a gift, but he couldn't think of anything good. He stayed all day in the store until he was kicked out, ended up buying nothing, and even got delayed for dinner. When he got home, his wife thought he had forgotten the date, and that was the result. Yuki, surprised, asks how strong his wife is. Kleeman says she is a former adventurer, rank A, just like him, and that they were a duo in the past. By only taking high-ranked missions, they earned the nickname the Invincible Couple, which he finds apathetic and thinks is not an enviable nickname at all. He offers to use healing magic on him, but Kleeman quickly declines, saying that this is an opportunity for his wife to take good care of him, which confirms that he's really crazy. At that moment, his wife arrives, commenting that she brought a new change of clothes. She greets Yuki, and he is shocked to realize that Sophia is Kleeman's wife. The vice leader says he was waiting for her and calls her sweetie, but ends up getting hit on the head for not being allowed to call her that. She thanks Yuki for visiting her husband, and he asks how Cecilia is doing. Sophia comments that her fever has gone down, and overall, she is feeling better. Taking advantage of the conversation, Yuki asks if he can visit her, but Sophia says Cecilia will be out all day for work, although she thinks that the young lady should stay home resting for a few days. Yuki thinks she is quite busy and asks Sophia if the girls really care about gifts. Realizing her husband mentioned what happened to him, Sophia gets nervous. Yuki tries to disguise it, saying it was another similar case, and remembers Cecilia's face when he offered her the necklace. He comments that he wants to please Cecilia. Sophia says that if it's something made with sincerity, she will definitely like it. Yuki thanks her for the advice and says goodbye. While walking down the street, he starts imagining what their life would be like if he were married to Cecilia. As he arrives at the knight's dormitory, coming out of his daydream, he enters and looks for Raven, who is thrown on the bed, lifeless, and calling out for him. But there is no reaction, so he uses the ultimate card and speaks the name of Happiness, which causes Raven to quickly come back. Raven asks how he knows that name, and he says that they have known each other for a long time, and asks if he has time to tell how they met. Raven recounts that it all started one day when he was patrolling alone. Some thugs were harassing her in an alley. Raven decided to intervene and defeated one of them. Then, when the others saw that he was from the Order of Knights, they decided to retreat. Without further ado, he said goodbye to Happiness, but she stopped him and thanked him. Raven replied that he was just doing his job. Upon saying this, he realized that he had heard her voice. Embarrassed, he was about to leave, but Rapness told him that he had a beautiful voice. Obviously, Raven thought that was absurd. However, Rapness went on to say that it was beautiful and that she envied him for it. After that, she said goodbye. Back to the present, Raven mentions that her uniform looked familiar to him. Then Yuki understands that that's why he went to Cecilia's house. Raven asks if Yuki knows her too, and Yuki replies that he does. Thus, he tells his story. Raven is impressed by his determination and becomes even more depressed about not being able to be like him. Yuki asks him not to think that way and reveals that Rapness has difficulty dealing with men due to past traumas. Raven understands that's why she rejected him, since her sudden confession scared her, and he doubts it's just because of that, but comments that it's still too early to give up. He encourages him to keep going and suggests they go out together to spread their minds. So, they go to a store where other couples are buying things. Raven asks Yuki if they won't look strange, but that doesn't concern him. Then Yuki sees that Cecilia's gift is still there and buys it, hoping she will like it. At that moment, he sees Raven looking at what to buy for Happiness. Raven approaches, pointing out a flower-shaped ornament, saying it would look perfect on her. He wants to buy it, but wonders if Happiness wouldn't be scared to receive a gift from a man she barely knows. Yuki, as a love expert, comments that if he does it from the heart, for sure, she will appreciate it. Raven doesn't fully believe it, but is sure that Happiness will like the design and decides to give the gift when he sees her again. So, he buys it and, not wanting to speak, writes on a piece of paper that he will bring it. At that moment, Makan appears recognizing Raven and Yuki as companions of Cecilia. Makan teases them for being in a place like this. However, Yuki responds that they came to buy a gift for their beloveds, although Raven didn't want this to be revealed. Knowing this, Makan confirms that Yuki is interested in Cecilia, but is even more surprised with Raven. Since he doesn't respond, Makan understands it's her fault for laughing when she met him. In that instant, they notice that the entire store is looking at them, so Makan invites them to talk somewhere else. Yuki was about to refuse, but Raven asks them to accept, and so they go to a food place. However, instead of talking, Yuki and Raven start eating to avoid saying anything more. Maiken then comments that she intended to give information about Cecilia, which ends up convincing Yuki. Maiken asks how far he has gotten with her. Yuki tells that they are still nothing, and that Cecilia receives many marriage proposals, like that of the hero. Mikan knows that the hero has already been rejected, as he always makes Cecilia angry. He intrudes when she is changing and when she is bathing, besides always being surrounded by women. Mikan warns Yuki that it is very dangerous to irritate Cecilia, so he must be careful. After that, the conversation turns to Raven. However, Yuki doesn't want Mikan to meddle in his love, but she wants to help as well. Plus, she has no one to talk about these things. Raven deduces that she also needs help and comments that Yuki is good at giving advice. Thus, Mikan shares that Yuga is upset with her for something that Raven also knows and makes Yuki swear that he won't tell anyone. Then she reveals that they lost many times in the Demon King's castle. Yuki, who already knew all this, doesn't know how to react. She tells that whenever they lost, they were healed and thrown into the nearest village. However, they also lied to that people, saying that they returned to prepare better and protect the hero's honor until the resources ran out. Then, the demon proposed that they leave Cecilia behind, and she did not hesitate to convince the rest of the group to accept the deal. Now, she believes that Yuga will never forgive her for making such a cruel decision, and although he says nothing and acts joyfully, she can feel it. She asks Yuki if he also hates her, as she almost caused the death of the priestess he loves so much. Raven asks Yuki not to blame Mikan. After all, he is. Also to blame for not voicing his opinion when this happened. Yuki thinks he is the cause of everything, since he even made the heroes group drift apart. In light of this, E asks if they have told Cecilia what they feel. Mikan replies that no, after all, she doesn't think it's appropriate to say that she sacrificed her to protect Yuga's honor because she was in love with him. Therefore, E asks if she intends to continue living with this discomfort and urges her to think a little more about it. Mikan agrees, thanks them for the advice, and bids farewell to both. After hearing all of this, Raven comments that he also does not want everything to end like this. Thus, they decide to talk to Happiness. Upon arriving at Cecilia's family's residence, Duke comes out to the garden, and E takes the opportunity to introduce Raven, but Duke recognizes him as the guy who declared his feelings to Happiness. Becoming defensive, Duke asks why he has come, wondering if he wants to be rejected. Again, E asks him to calm down and apologizes to Raven. He explains that Duke is a friend of Happiness and is concerned about her. Duke then asks Raven what his intentions are, making it clear that he will not allow anyone with bad intentions to approach Happiness. Raven remains silent, which irritates Duke, who recommends that he leave as he does not trust a weak guy like him. Yuki was about to say something, but Raven interrupts him. Being sincere, Raven admits that he knows nothing about Happiness and doesn't even think about what he should say when he sees her. Duke exclaims that the normal thing would be to say he would protect her or make her happy. Raven replies that those would not be his words. At that moment, they see the girl talking to Sick. Duke loses his patience and says to Raven, to put it in his own words, Raven gathers his courage. Thus, we see him approach, apologize for what happened last time, and take out a small gift. He asks her to accept it and allow him to be her friend. The scavenger Cora accepts the gift and says that if it's only to be friends, that's perfect for her. The redhead feels joy, and the scene ends with him expressing his gratitude. Well, if you've made it this far, comment the word advice, so I know you reached the end. On another day, we see Yuki completely dejected. Sick asks him to go to Celia's mansion, but he doesn't want to go because Cecilia isn't there. He mentions that it's been a whole week since he last saw her, as the heroes group has been very busy. Cecilia is traveling through villages to tend to the wounded. Raven is the captain of the knights, Miyaka is the royal court mage, and Yuga is dedicated to diplomacy and monster extermination. He thinks that such a dispersed group doesn't have time even to talk, and he blames all this on Yuki. In the midst of the boredom, Sick sits on him and says he's only there because Duke was recruited by Raven. Just then, Rap enters the room to deliver a message from Cecilia, saying that she will be home in the afternoon. This makes Yuki overjoyed, as he will finally be able to give her the necklace. With some time still left until the afternoon, Yuki decides to kill time in the city. There, a fortune teller reveals to him that today he will have a lot of bad luck, but Yuki ignores the warning, as he will see his beloved, and there is no better day than this. After that, he goes to a store where he is attended by a muscular man. He is the brother of the usual clerk and is covering the shift today. Yuki asks for some sweets to take, but the man ends up crushing everything against his chest, wishing he would come back soon. Yuki leaves completely startled and realizes that the food has been destroyed, although it still tastes good. Shortly after, he trips over another muscular man and then nearly steps in excrement, starting to think that today will really be a bad day. Just then, a boy runs by with his skewer, bumps into Yuki, knocks everything to the ground, and starts crying. Yuki asks him to calm down and buys 2 skewers, urging him to be careful. After that, he bumps into a thief. Yuki realizes that the guy has stolen his money, so he chases him, jumping and kicking him. When he retrieves his bag, Yuga appears thinking he is a thief. Yuki tries to explain himself, but Yuga starts attacking him. Even dodging the blows, Yuki's bag ends up torn. When he tries to escape, the guards block his way. Yuga approaches and orders him to surrender. With no other option, Yuki ends up giving in. Already in prison, he feels depressed until he hears a familiar voice asking if he misses living locked up. Yuki realizes it is Duke. He says that Raven is already investigating the case, so he asks for patience. This makes Yuki feel relieved, now that Duke is under Raven's command. Yuki should call him captain, but for Duke, Yuki is his only captain at this moment. Another guard arrives. She is Irene, an elf. She informs Duke that he needs to return to training, as the sub-captain is furious that he left. Duke tells her to forget that and to hand him the key, since, as Captain Raven stated, Yuki did nothing wrong. Irene hands over the keys and mentions that the hero wants to apologize to him, leaving Yuki curious about what he intends to do. Thus, we see Yuki gathered with Raven and Yuga. The latter, with his usual demeanor, offers a feast as a way of apology. After they eat, Yuga hands Yuki some pages filled with apology phrases that Raven forced him to write. Then, Yuga asks if he is the boy who was with Cecilia the other day, and Yuki confirms. Then Yuga asks what his relationship with her is. The protagonist replies that they are just friends, which relieves Yuga, who then asks for advice on how to get along better with her. Yuki is indignant, after all. They are rivals in love. Concealing his discomfort, he says he can't help, as he doesn't know her that well, and suggests asking someone else. Then Raven proposes Makana. Yuga says he finds that unlikely, as she hates Cecilia. This surprises Yuki, who asks if that is what she said. Yuga replies that no, but he's sure, as she tried to abandon Cecilia in one of their battles, although fortunately nothing happened. Even so, he thinks that's very cruel. Yuki's face grows serious upon hearing this. He asks if Yuga is serious. As far as he remembers, Makana wasn't the one who abandoned Cecilia. Yuga shouts that he doesn't know anything, but Yuki reveals that Makana told him everything while crying, saying that actually it wasn't her idea to abandon Cecilia, but rather a proposal from a powerful demon against whom they couldn't stop losing. Even so, Yuga says that he always opposed it, and that Makana insisted on accepting. Faced with this, Yuki responds that Makana cried when she told everything because she felt guilty. This seems absurd to the hero, which reinforces that it was she who insisted. Yuki loses patience and shouts for him to remember, for in the end, the final decision was his. Despite this, Yuga refuses to accept the blame. Raven then intervenes, asking them to accompany him. Thus, Yuki demands that Yuga stop blaming his companions and take responsibility for his actions as the hero he is. In light of these words, Yuga begins to cry and apologizes. The hero calms down. He then shares that he has known Makana since they were children. She has always been very hardworking and scolded him when he was wrong, but even so, she has always been by his side and supported him all this time, even when he was chosen as a hero. Now, aware of what he has done, he wonders what he should do and recommends that he continue to let her scold him. After all, she cares about him, and if that doesn't work, he can just think of something else. Yuga thanks her and decides to go apologize, but feeling unsure about going alone, he asks both of them to accompany him. The three, holding hands, walk to Makana's house. Yuga thanks them for coming with him and gathers courage to enter alone. They encourage him, especially Yuki, since this way the division of the group would finally be resolved. However, Yuga is too hasty and enters Makana's room without knocking, just as she was changing. The screams can be heard from outside, but Yuga doesn't leave and asks her to listen to him. He has finally realized that he did something terrible. He has always caused trouble and still blamed her for the decision to abandon Cecilia, now saying he is very sorry. He thinks that simply asking for forgiveness is not enough, but believes he can start with that and begs her to continue scolding him. This disappoints Makana, who comments that he barged into her room while she was changing just to ask her to scold him, questioning if he has become a masochist. Then, she gives him a punishment for being a pervert. Meanwhile, Yuki leaves, leaving Raven in charge of the situation. On his way to the mansion, he crosses paths again with the fortune teller from before. Once again, Yuki ignores her, but the fortune teller comments that his destiny has just changed, perhaps because of the good deeds he has done. Along the way, Yuki meets the man from the shop and his sister. He had come to apologize for the smashed sweets and handed her other ones as an apology, but Yuki thanked him and continued walking until he was surrounded by three men dressed in black. At that moment, a butler greeted him, apologizing for the trouble caused by the young man. Master Yuki recognized him as the boy with the skewers. The butler explained that he had escaped and handed him a gift as an apology. After that, we see Yuki arriving at the mansion and apologizing for being late. Upon entering, he saw Cecilia. She commented that it felt like an entire month had passed, and before they even sat down, Yuki handed her the gifts he received, sweets and skewers. Since they were there, Cecilia asked if he would like her to prepare tea, and Yuki questioned if that wasn't the maid's job, but she replied that Sophia had taught her how to make it, adding that she was also a good cook, which made Yuki fall even more in love with her. After they ate, Yuki shared that Rap and Raven had become friends and also commented that he had met Mikan and Yuga, wishing that everything would work out for them. Cecilia was about to ask something when they heard Yuga's screams. He entered the room without warning and stated that he had already recognized his mistake and wanted her to reprimand him. However, Mikan hit him, saying that he had already told her that. She explained that everyone had come there to apologize and realized she was out of place. so she left. Mikan directly apologized to Cecilia, regardless of the reasons. The truth is that they abandoned her. They were all cowards and left her alone with that demon. Cecilia asked them not to worry. At that moment, it wasn't just her life that was in danger, as it also must not have been easy to face the Demon King without a healer. Then the battle was shown. In reality, they defeated the Demon King with overwhelming superiority. As soon as the battle ended, McCann rushed back to look for Cecilia, finding her by chance along the way. Seeing that she was fine, she collapsed unconscious in her arms. Cecilia recognized McCann's effort in trying to come back for her. Moreover, she acknowledged that there were no other alternatives, so no one did anything wrong. The two hold hands. McCann thanks, and the others apologize too, although Raven does it in her own way. Seeing that everyone has reconciled, she feels happy. In the afternoon, we see our couple taking a walk. Cecilia thanks him for advising her friends and allowing this misunderstanding to be cleared up. He replies that he did it because things seemed strange between them due to his fault. Once again, Cecilia thanks him, saying that she now feels happy, and not only that, as she also gets along well with her family and friends, besides having adapted to that world. Taking advantage of the moment, he gives her a gift. Cecilia opens it and discovers that it is a necklace. The protagonist comments that it is the same one they saw on the day they went out together. He asks her to accept it, and Cecilia agrees, promising to take good care of it. This leaves Yuki emotional, who thanks her while crying. Cecilia feels a bit confused, but can't help but think about how her world has become more lively since she met Yuki. In a scene change, we see a village being raided by bandits. Their leader raises his sword against the village chief and demands valuables. The chief agrees to hand everything over, but pleads for no one to be harmed. The bandit merely laughs, and as he is about to end the chief's life, he is slain from behind by a young swordsman. The bandit's companions become enraged and attack the mysterious young man. However, he takes them all down with just 3 simple cuts, saying in the end that he is very bored. Now we are with Yuki and Siki, who accompany Cecilia on a mission entrusted to her. Siki celebrates a lot as he was dying to travel in a carriage like that, while Yuki asks her not to make so much noise since they are there to help. Siki retorts, saying that she didn't want to be alone, and seeing the two of them arguing ends up getting some laughs from Cecilia and what. However, he remains irritated since his plan was to be alone with her, and her friend basically ended up ruining everything. At that moment, Cecilia apologizes and says that she really appreciates the fact that they accompany her in this task, but suddenly she covers her mouth and makes a face, explaining that she feels sick from the movement of the carriage. Pixies, something that Cecilia thanks before taking a sip, then comments that she is already feeling better. They argue again because of this comment, but Cecilia just laughs and says that she feels comforted by being able to travel with them later. They finally arrive at the village that was attacked, where they observe the damage caused by the bandits. The mayor approaches to greet them and admits who never imagined that Miss Cecilia would honor them with her presence. She in turn explains that her companions are friends who came to help and assures them that they can trust their skills. After that, the 3 join the others to take care of the injured, helping in whatever way possible. After a while, the mayor comments to Yuki that Cecilia is an extraordinary person. Yuki agrees fully and says that it is lucky that no one lost their lives. The mayor confirms and explains that the criminals fled suddenly because someone attacked them without warning, and what one wonders if it could have been an internal fight, but is distracted when he notices that Cecilia continues treating the injured, even though she has a bad expression on her face. So he approaches and suggests that she rest a little, but Cecilia refuses, saying that she is fine. Yet Yuki decides to use Rolabelle on her to make her sleep, and when holding her in her arms, she explains to those present that she just fell asleep, asking for a place where I can let her rest for a while. Then Cecilia wakes up in a bed, and upon realizing what happened, she immediately gets angry, making Yuki nervous while she asks if he didn't hear what she had said, and he apologizes for having used magic to do it. Sleeping without warning, and Cecilia points out that ignoring other people's wishes is something very wrong. He defends himself by saying that he couldn't let her continue like that because she was about to faint. Cecilia ends up agreeing, calming down, but asks him not to do that again. Yuki promises and tells him that they will take care of the injured in her place, which makes Cecilia thank him much more cheerful, leaving Yuki surprised by how cute she is. Soon after, the mayor enters the room, and after apologizing for bothering her, tells her that there is a young woman called Uncle who lives nearby, and I would like Cecilia to come and see her. He explains that luckily her uncle is not injured or has suffered anything, but she was born with very fragile health, spending most of her time in bed, which worries them a lot. Cecilia accepts the request, and then the three go to visit her. After properly introducing themselves, they explain that the mayor asked them to go there before the uncle can say anything. She starts coughing a lot, so Yuki asks Sike to take care of it. Sike delivers some medicine, and after taking some, Uncle comments that he believes he is feeling a little better, thanking him for the medicine still. So he says that feeling good must be thanks to the guardian deity, as they don't know what it is about. Uncle explains that it is the divine statue that is nearby. She says that when the village was attacked, he ended up falling asleep while returning from taking offerings to the statue, but nothing happened to him. He also says that it wasn't the first time something like this had happened, because when he was just 7 years old, he went through something similar. She was about to be attacked by wild beasts when the guardian deity appeared. To save her, convinced that it was a divine intervention, she talks about it with joy. On the other hand, Cecilia realizes important details such as extreme drowsiness and a dark ray, which seems very suspicious. So they ask their uncle to take them to the statue. When they see what it is, the three agree that the appearance, it's evil. Uncle tries to complain about that, but her health worsens and Cecilia takes her back home, leaving them alone. Yuki comments that it is quite obvious and that it is a gargoyle from the Demon King's castle, and suddenly the gargoyle attacks Yuki with a ray of darkness that he dodges without difficulty when he tries to say something to himself. He realizes that she has already attacked and disabled the gargoyle with ease. The gargoyle says that if they are going to kill her, that they do it right away, even if you don't have any problem with that, and which explains that they just want to talk and asks her to attack, then reminds the gargoyle that she was the one who attacked them first. Gargoyle apologizes and asks why they find it strange that a gargoyle ends up becoming the guardian deity of a village. She explains that she was created to protect a sanctuary, but that one day bandits. After that, these same bandits began to terrorize the village, and she decided to grant divine justice, so the people began to treat her as their guardian deity and as their reward. It was good. She didn't see any reason to complain. However, currently only that girl continues to visit the place since she was saved from some monsters. Uncle started to go every day to clean the sanctuary in the day before learning about the bandits. The gargoyle kept her safe after hearing the whole story, and which concludes that she has no intention of harming any human before they leave, but he asks a specific favor to Sik at nightfall. Yuki walks alone with Cecilia through the forest and tells him that he went to the installation because he was sleepy, hiding the fact that this was a request, how everything worked out. He thanks the heavens for finally being able to be alone with Cecilia. Cecilia says she doesn't like the idea of leaving monsters loose around, but she also doesn't see that she is causing problems for the people of the village, and the one who agrees with this and says that as the gargoyle has behaved well. So far, he does not believe that anything bad will happen with this. Cecilia agrees to give the she the benefit of the doubt, closing the subject. After that, the two remain completely silent, and Yuki wonders in her mind what she should do without having the slightest idea what to say. Some seconds later, Cecilia trips on a root that sticks out of the ground, but Yuki reacts quickly and catches her in time. As expected, the two end up becoming much closer than before, but after a brief moment of tension and embarrassment, they quickly turn away out of shame. Yuki advises that she be more careful, as the paths are dangerous at night, something Cecilia accepts in addition to thanking him. A short time later, in the village, the alarm sounds warning that the bandits are attacking again. Causing chaos everywhere, they demand that the residents hand over all the money and food they have, but luckily, Yuki, Cecilia, and Sik are present this time and refuse to accept such atrocities. One of the bandits treats them like simple brats, but Yuki tells Sik to take care of them. Even though she has just been woken up from her nap, Sik jumps up and skillfully knocks out two of them with kicks, knocking down others with his dagger. Without wasting time, Yuki uses Stormblow, creating a whirlwind that throws a group of bandits into the air when he hits them squarely. Suddenly, one of them attacks him from the side flank, trying to surprise him, but Yuki blocks the blow with magic without difficulty, causing the enemy to also be thrown by the air pressure without being distracted at any point. He electrocutes the bandit who tried to attack Cecilia from behind, and she thanks him for protecting her despite managing to defeat all the bandits nearby. The three realize that something is happening further on, precisely in the direction where the sanctuary of the guardian deity is. Worried Yuki asks that Sik go and check the place. At that moment, a large group of bandits gather in front of Yuki and Cecilia, and one of them warns them not to underestimate them, saying he doubts they can face them alone. Upon hearing this, Yuki responds that against all of them, he is more than enough, and then uses Hyperstorm, launching a medium-power tornado that uses shipping into the air. Shortly afterwards, the bandits are immobilized, resolving the attack. Meanwhile, the uncle, in tears, asks the guardian deity to hold firm because she was seriously injured because of an unexpected attacker, the swordsman from before. As for Sick, she ends up being overcome by that same enemy, and upon realizing that Yuki and Cecilia are falling apart, approaching, he pushes him away with a strong kick, commenting that he seems to have hit the jackpot. Very irritated, Yuki asks who he is. Cecilia replies that he is Essie Miller, the hero of the Empire Garys, something that surprises him since he didn't know that there were others, besides Yuga Sick. Toarito murmurs that his duel isn't over yet, but Cecilia tries to calm her down so that she doesn't try anymore and asks what happened. Sick explains that Miller attacked the gargoyle that protected her uncle by the back, and that she just wanted to protect them. When she heard this, Miller says it's ridiculous to defend a gargoyle and goes to her to finish the job, when Yuki asks him to stop. Miller asks what he wants to say that monsters must be killed. Yuki just asks him to leave her alone, explaining that that gargoyle wanted to protect his uncle, but this makes Miller declare that he is going to cut that brat in half when he is about to attack Yuki, launches a lightning attack, but it disappears when it collides with Miller's sword. Cecilia quickly warns him that this won't work, as he has the advantage, and that Yuki must retreat, as Miller imposes the artificial magical sword Magicr that allows him to absorb magic. Miller confirms this with confidence and launches a ranged attack against the gargoyle, cutting one of his arms. Before he advances again, Cecilia asks him to stop, saying that hurting a citizen with clarines is an act of war. Upon hearing this, Miller responds that that would be very emotional, starting to lick the edge of the sword and revealing how disturbed he is. He also comments that killing in times of peace is no fun, but that in a war he could kill at will, realizing his vision distorted life. Cecilia says that he has no honor as a hero, something that doesn't affect him at all, yet Yuki casts a minor spell, warning him that he is still just warming up. In this moment, he prepares a powerful tornado to throw it at Miller. But when the sword completely dispels the attack, Miller appears extremely confident and even begins to mock without giving. Much away, Yuki's attention switches to ranged attacks and remains focused on firing different types of magic. Upon seeing this, the gargoyle comments that he doesn't like the situation at all because Yuki will end up defeated when you run out of mana, something that also makes Cecilia worried. However, from then on, Yuki begins to use superior magic, the first being Bling Plasma, creating 2 large explosions on Miller's sides, which again had no effect on his defense in the face of Miller. Says that Yuki must be very ignorant to keep trying, but without losing his cool, Yuki responds that it's time to get serious, and suddenly he fires 2 lightning bolts. Intensity with both hands colliding with Miller's sword, he asks Yuki not to contain himself, recognizing that he has enormous power for a human. Yuki continues using his magic without stopping, and in the midst of Miller's mocking comments, his expression changes when he notices that the edge of his weapon begins to break. Although Yuki reminds him that it is an artificial magic sword, suddenly Yuki intensifies the release of magic in his attack, destroying the sword once and for all. As soon as this happens, he shortens the distance and uses Storm Blow, a punch imbued with magic that hits the enemy's face. Miller and throws him against a tree due to the force of the impact. At that moment, Miller opens a wicked smile, creates a spear of light, and throws it with force. Yuki blocks it without any problems, but realizes that the attack changes direction and heads towards the gargoyle, however. Instead of hitting it directly, the uncle puts himself in front to receive the blow with pain. The gargoyle asks the reason for that. While the uncle she is relieved that she is safe, Cecilia quickly runs to her to provide first aid, while Miller insults the fact that someone sacrificed themselves to a monster. Before Yuki could react, Miller prepares a bow and launches a special attack into the air that is divided into several magical rays aimed at everyone around, and which protects everyone with a barrier, but ends up allowing them to. Miller escapes when he realizes that everything ended badly, and he mentally curses himself, thinking he is an idiot for having let so much mana go to his head. Anger consumes him to the point that he suffers a sudden transformation, losing control of his own power. Miller walks calmly and heals his injuries with a magical item he had kept. It is then that he notices a demon approaching something that you consider perfect since you are in a bad mood. When he prepares to attack him, and what disappears from his front and appears behind him, crushing him violently against the ground. Feeling the overwhelming force, Miller asks what the hell he is. But Yuki. It just reminds him that he ripped off the arm and wings of his gargoyle subordinate, and that he will pay with his life for his atrocities upon hearing. This Miller assumes that Yuki is the gargoyle's master. Next, Yuki holds the erg by the neck and simply releases it, delivering a powerful kick that launches it away, devastating everything in its path through the forest. Even after receiving such a violent blow, Miller manages to get up injured and wonders how there are still such powerful demons since the Demon King was defeated. Miller turns to attack him with the weapon, but Yuki holds his arm with ease, forcing him to release the short sword with him immobilized. Yuki uses his other free hand to concentrate magic on the fist, and instead of punching him, he just presses the fist against Miller's stomach. Miller falls to his knees because that release of magic is more than enough to weaken him, and what silences him by squeezing his neck and cutting off his breathing. But then Miller says that he needs to understand him, because killing amuses him that they are the same. These words provoke a reaction in Yuki, but he remembers Cecilia's worried look when she sees him in that shape. Thanks to that thirst, Yuki's killer calms down a little, and he tells Miller that he is not worthy of dying by his hands, and that if he is lucky, he will be able to return to his country. Miller asks if he is serious, and states that he will never forget this humiliation without paying attention to him. Yuki simply throws him into the lake below, and then Yuki approaches on foot, having already returned to normal, and asks where the other Cecilia are. He responds that everyone is safe and sound, which he considers to be a good thing, but suddenly his head starts to bleed, leaving Cecilia alarmed, and he asks her not to worry, explaining that it happened because he pulled out the horn that had appeared, and without hesitation, he uses his healing magic on it. I feel immediate relief, and he is grateful the next day. Uncle explains to the group that he wants to go to Minerva, because she wants to find a way to cure the guardian deity. Later, Cecilia recommends her uncle to her mother to work, and she accepts without any problems, trusting her judgment with everything settled, and asks permission to leave the statue there. But Cecilia angrily refuses, saying that it is very ugly, which ends up making her uncle sad. With the achievement of leaving the gargoyle in the room, Yuki, uncle, takes charge of making it shine while carrying out its maintenance. But when he finishes, he starts coughing a little. This makes them ask if he is well, and also clarify that he doesn't need to come every day. He ignores this and asks where Yuki is, something that surprises the gargoyle, as it is unusual for her not to have noticed that he left, and that, in fact, said he would go to the castle. Here we see that both Yuki and Cecilia attend an audience with the king, where the long-haired woman at his side, named Sylvia, announces him as King Dars of Taclarines. Because of the way he speaks and what he thinks, whether they are humans or demons, all the kings in this world are arrogant. However, Dars leaves aside this seriousness and comments that it was too formal, and, laughing, he proposes to speak in a normal way, something that Sylvia rejects. After that, Dars apologizes and gets straight to the point, telling the two that they expelled the hero Miller and a group of bandits, thus saving the village of Dagas. That's why they will receive a bonus. Cecilia immediately says that she doesn't want anything in return and that she just did what she had to do. The king considers this very and respects her stance, so he decides to ask Yuki the same. Suddenly, he stands up to clarify that the only thing he wants is something that not even the king can grant, as it is a desire that he needs to achieve on his own. This catches the attention of Dars, who asks if it is about money, but Yuki replies that it is not. As he likes to joke around, Dars then asks if it would be a harem or even the throne. However, Yuki makes it clear that it is nothing like that, stating that the only thing he longs for is Cecilia's love. After making this announcement in a dramatic way, a long and awkward silence takes over the great hall. Meanwhile, Cecilia is perplexed and quite flushed with embarrassment, without ever having expected anything like this. After a few seconds, the king just lets out a laugh, agreeing that it really is something he can't give her. Despite this, already at Cecilia's residence, he immediately kneels down in front of her to apologize. She reprimands him, saying that it was the right place to declare your love, and accuses him of not having any common sense or brains. Celia takes her side, saying that he is totally guilty and that he needs to think about what he did. It is then that she informs him that, from today onwards, he is banned from seeing Cecilia for a month. Upon hearing this, he is completely shocked. The impact is so great that his body shakes and he faints on the floor. Seeing this reaction, Cecilia comments to her mother, which, it seems, he has regretted more than enough, and asks if this is really necessary. This catches the attention of Celia, who asks if by any chance she will miss him. The way how she raises this doubt makes Cecilia nervous, not knowing how to respond, and based on her reaction, Celia agrees to reduce the punishment to half a month. Having said that, she signals to Japines to grab Yuki and forcefully expel him from the room. As he is dragged, he screams Cecilia's name in pain. In the hallway, Happiness stops in front of a window and asks him to take a look. What he realizes is that C is down in the garden, which answers her question about why he hadn't come back yet. She comments that he's been sad for a long time and that she supposes it's because of Miller, since he hasn't been able to protect Chell and the gargoyle. On the other hand, Tio clings to the gargoyle, adoring her, even though she tries to ask him not to be so clingy. Soon after, Happiness arrives and throws Yuki to the ground, greets the two, calling the gargoyle Tio finds. This strange, and Yuki explains that the name is because it is a gargoyle and that they need to call it something. Upon understanding, Tio thinks it is a name very beautiful, although he makes it clear that for her, he will always be her guardian deity. Suddenly, she starts coughing again. Then Gar asks her to go back to Javen, who stays by their side to accompany her. Before leaving, Gar advises her not to try too hard, but Tio, with a smile, says that all her strength comes from him. When they are alone, Yuki complains about having let herself get carried away, since this prohibited him from seeing Cecilia. But understanding his situation, Gar suggests that he will have to do everything possible to make up for it later. Yuki visits the guild and explains his situation to Kleeman, desperately asking him to give him all the work available, accepting anything as long as he can become a man worthy of Cecilia. But later on, we see Cecilia serving 2 cups of tea in the garden, asking if what's going on. Then her mother arrives and asks who the other cup of tea is for, since she was alone. Despite being taken by surprise, Cecilia replies that it's for herself. Celia accepts this without question, and comments out loud that it will soon be half a month later. Cecilia says she doesn't know what she's talking about. Even so, Celia wonders what Yuki will be doing it, and Sophia informs her that, according to her husband, he has been working a lot. Cecilia is very happy to hear this, and Celia realizes this just by looking at her daughter's face next to Yuki. He returns home after his routine. Gar asks if he went back to work all night, and Yuki explains that it's because he'll soon see Cecilia again, which makes him very excited. Side, Gar comments that there is something he wants to talk about, and without prior warning, adopts his real form, making it clear that the injury is worse than he feared. Yuki is quite impacted by watching him, as he realizes that he is deteriorating. Garly says that, it seems, he only has a few days left to live. A little upset, Yuki asks why he didn't say anything, before Gar clarifies that this isn't the case. Would have changed nothing, and that is why she wants him to take care of Tio, especially since she has not yet fully overcome her illness and could faint at any moment. Understanding his intentions, he accepts without any problems to take care of Tio, which Gar is grateful for, as this way he can leave without remorse. Suddenly he is interrupted when Yuki promises that she will save him, using as an excuse that room would be empty without him, and that it would be necessary to have him there as a work of art. Shortly afterwards, Yuki talks to Duke to tell him about this problem, and he explains that Gar can solve it eating Magicita, and Yuki is surprised at how simple it seems. So he thanks him and hurriedly runs away. Duke tries to stop him to clarify that he hasn't finished explaining the details yet, but ends up letting him go, since Yuki doesn't listen to him. At that moment, Cecilia runs to Yuki to stop him, warning him that something urgent has happened to Uncle. The two arrive at her room. Yuki asks herself how she is. He responds that the situation is serious, as the fever is not going down, and Cecilia knows that magic cannot eliminate the disease itself. Seek adds that his uncle loses his strength very quickly, and that the medicine will only give him a little more time. Yuki asks if there is anything they can do, so Siki explains that they are missing ingredients, the twilight herb being needed. As Yuki doesn't know it, Cecilia explains that it is a plant with flowers that only grows in places rich in mana, and Sika adds that it doesn't grow in Minerva, the which is not good. Even so, Yuki firmly declares that he will resolve this, and Cecilia decides to help him. At that moment, Yuki also mentions Gar's case, causing the uncle to react and ask if anything happened to the deity. Seek stops her from getting out of bed, saying that she needs to rest, and tells Yuki that he will keep an eye on her. When the two leave the room, Yuki asks Cecilia, where can they find the magicite? She responds that the Merchants Guild must sell valuable materials. But when they are about to go, they are surprised to see Celia in front of them, who quickly tries to take responsibility for being together, and Cecilia does the same. To their surprise, Celia asks them not to worry, as she knows they were worried about their uncle. Kindly, he asks them to do what they need to do. When they arrive at the Merchants Guild, they discover that there is neither magicite nor twilight herb, as they are scarce materials. And what is left with soon after, Kleeman arrives to ask the attendant if his matter has already been resolved, receiving the answer yes, with the delivery of the order form. Next, Kleeman tries to say something to Yuki, but he immediately interrupts him, saying that he refuses, assuming that he wants to give him a job, and that at that moment he doesn't have time for that. Upon hearing this, Kleeman approaches and asks if he needs magicite and twilight herb, and explains that, if that is the case, there is a mission that consists of eliminating a monster in a magicite mine. As a lot of humans accumulate there, the twilight herb also grows in this place. Once they discover this, Yuki and Cecilia look at each other and accept. Without hesitation, participating in the mission later, they leave in a carriage together with Kleeman and Sophia. Yuki complains that it will take 2 days to reach the mine, but Kleeman clarifies that as he was in a hurry, he got an express carriage, something he should be grateful for. The next day, Sophia asks if everyone is ready to leave, but Yuki and Cecilia worry when they see her leaving to the girl dressed as a maid. She explains that it is a custom-made combat outfit, and adds that her husband dislikes the way she looks wearing the maid's uniform, leaving her too quite impacted by this unexpected information. Without further ado, they begin the journey, and when they advance far enough into the mine, they encounter the mutant rock eater that doesn't stop eat magicite. Shortly after, he notices their presence and, without hesitation, starts throwing huge rocks at everyone. Yuki takes charge of pulling Cecilia out of reach, while Sophia uses her speed to dodge, and Kleeman protects himself by summoning his creatures. For a few minutes, Yuki and Cecilia use different spells to contain the monster, but due to his absurd strength, he manages to dodge, break free, and continue attacking aggressively. So, Kleeman explains to Yuki that he is going to cover Sophia with fancy games so that they can enter through the monster's mouth and kill him from the inside. Plan, Cecilia worries, as it doesn't seem like the safest plan in the world, but Sophia guarantees that hand-to-hand combat is her specialty. Kleeman even boasts, saying that his wife is the best in the world. To be able to help them with this, he immobilizes the lower part of the monster by surrounding it with a large accumulation of water that turns into ice moments later. Then Cecilia launches, once again uses his chain magic to bind the upper part, making the monster let out a scream of fury. With his mouth open, Kleeman takes advantage of the opportunity and wraps Sophia with a large amount of chic games. Without hesitation, she approaches the monster's mouth and enters it. After that, the rock devourer begins to struggle desperately, while Yuki makes a huge effort to freeze your legs even more. However, as a method of defense, the monster sheds several parts of its own skin, and as soon as they fall to the ground, they transform into smaller versions of itself, which start attacking them. Cecilia warns Kleeman about this, but he asks her to hold on just 1 more minute, maintaining full concentration on her magic. The rock eater manages to free herself from the chains, but Cecilia quickly launches them again to keep him trapped at all times. As for the small golems, Yuki tries to destroy them with a magical attack, but realizes that they take no damage. Without wasting time, he changes his tactic and starts hitting them directly with his fists. Being too difficult to contain, the rock devourer overcomes Cecilia's chains and breaks them violently, causing a fragment to fly and hits her. This leaves her vulnerable, and the monster approaches to attack her. However, suddenly, he stops, suffering an internal reaction that makes him fall to the ground. At that moment, Sophia comes out of his mouth and Kleeman runs to her to hug her, immediately asking if she was hurt. She replies no when she sees them like that, and comments that they are very close to each other. Cecilia agrees. Soon after, Sophia tells her husband that he can now release her, and as he walks away, he reminds everyone that they still need to look for the twilight herb. Upon hearing this, Yuki and Cecilia remember their objective and hurriedly move along the path. Cave, arriving at a beautiful area where sunlight enters. After searching a little, Cecilia points out the place where the twilight herb grows, thus concluding the mission and collecting resources. After leaving the mine, Kleeman says they need to return to Minerva quickly, but Kleeman reminds him that it is dangerous to travel at night, so they will leave at dawn. Already in their beds, Yuki hopes that they will stay longer, too late to sneak out, but ends up being surprised by Cecilia in the hallway. Instead of reprimanding him, she asks for silence and approaches to give him the twilight herb, explaining that as Sophia is sleeping, he can fly to Minerva. And, already outside the facility, he says goodbye and leaves quickly, partially assuming his demonic form to use his wings. After the trip, he comes directly through the bedroom window. And he approaches Gar, as he does not react, and he despairs, thinking he has arrived too late, refusing to accept this. He begins to shake him in despair, calling him a useless statue and saying that he cannot die after deceiving an innocent child. Suddenly, a strong flash of light comes out of Gar's eyes, showing that he is still alive. The first thing he asks is what happened to Uncle, and who responds that she will be fine. Yes, that he is taking care of her. Gar feels relieved to hear. This without wasting time, Yuki says that he also needs to hurry in eating magicite, but Gar responds that with the wounds he has, a little magicite won't be enough. Ignoring this, Yuki forcibly shoves the magicite into his mouth, saying that they still need it try, as it is not an option to sadden poor Uncle, who is fighting the disease just because she believes in him. While trying to force him to eat, he is surprised to see something that looks like a claw between the stones at the same time. Gar is shocked by the words he just heard and remembers what Tio had said before, that all his strength came from him. Thus he understands something important. Suddenly, the claw between the magicite begins to glow, and soon after Gar's entire body does the same. He screams in pain, saying that his entire body is burning. When the process ends, Gar realizes that his body has completely recovered and wonders if this is what they call a miracle. The next morning, we see Yuki sleeping in the carriage on the way to Minerva, using Cecilia's lap as a pillow. Kleeman and Sophia ask him what happened, since he looks exhausted. Cecilia explains that he tried hard and that this is his reward. A few days pass since the last incident and Yuki has nothing better to do, so he wanders around the city doing absolutely nothing useful for society until he notices Clemen, with a confused and tired expression, and immediately runs to him. To make his problems even worse, he asks what Clemen is doing, and Clemen replies that he is just trying to find a birthday gift for Sophia, and who wonders if Clemen has a death wish, as he should have bought the gift a long time ago. So, he decides to help him, on his own, even before Clemen could protest. Yuki drags him to a nearby store where he takes a pair of cat ears and puts them on his head, saying that it could spice up their love life and that maybe Clemen likes a bit of feline action. Clemen, however, cuts him off immediately, stating that he only likes it when she wears the maid outfit and that nothing comes close to that. He tells them to forget the idea of looking for a gift, as I had already bought one anyway, which, however, is practically a brain-melting content product on TikTok, with the dopamine receptors completely fried foods. Soon, he is distracted by a jumpsuit complete with helmet hanging in the store. That was everything he could have wanted when he came into this world. So he immediately falls in love with the idea of having that costume to act like a mysterious and misunderstood anti-hero. He puts on the costume with the helmet, picks up the zigzag sword that was nearby, and starts acting like a mistreated protagonist of any generic anime, demanding to be given a mission to show how amazing he is. While Clemen tries to prevent him from causing an even bigger scene in the middle of the market, not wanting to attract any more attention, Clemen takes Yuki back to the guild. The receptionist asks why he is there, since that was supposed to be his day off, and then his eyes turn to Yuki, who is standing behind him looking completely stupid. She doesn't even recognize him and asks if Clemen has found a new family member. Then Yuki introduces herself in a dramatic manner, declaring that she is the Shin Sword of Darkness, which will bring an end to the calamity that has ravaged this land. Tired of it, Kleeman just asks her to hand over some missions so he can get rid of that idiot. The receptionist takes out the last 4 remaining A-rank missions and asks which one of them he wants, but he replies that the Swordsman of Darkness does not choose. He does them all alone. Confused, since it's not normal for someone to take on so many missions at once, she hesitates, but Kleeman insists, so that he just gives it all away. The next morning, Yuki sets out on his first mission, to obtain the heart of a black dragon. He finds the creature in a clearing in the middle of the forest, where the dragon immediately goes on the attack. Using his agility, Yuki easily dodges and then delivers an electrifying blow with his sword, killing the monster with a single attack. He returns to the guild and gives the heart to the person who had requested it to cure his daughter, and soon the people around begin to notice this new individual who defeated a black dragon alone. Even Kleeman recognizes that, as much of a clown as Yuki is, there is no doubt that he is absurdly talented. So he solves the other missions one by one until only the last one remains, which requires tracking down a group of thieves and capture them, dead or alive. As night falls, the area around the pier becomes eerily silent, with only a few guards patrolling, and enter the main warehouse, where they find one of the merchants who was on their list, threatening to kill him if he doesn't hand over everything he has. Before they can act, Yuki appears out of nowhere in front of them, declaring that the reign of terror ends there and that, if they want to touch the merchant, they will have to pass by him first. 2 of the thieves draw their weapons and advance, but Yuki is too fast, easily dodging while still provoking them. He decides to use lightning magic. The first ray misses, but the second hits the girl squarely, knocking her unconscious. The next one hits the other, who falls to the ground, screaming that he can no longer feel his fingers. Only the leader remains, a boy with green hair, who takes a magic book and launches an attack against Yuki, but he blocks it with his own electrical magic and overwhelms him with a shock that paralyzes him, with everyone defeated. Yuki turns to the merchant and begins a dramatic speech, but the royal guard arrives at the scene along with Duke and Raven, immediately realizing that that idiot can only be Yuki. The knight orders that he surrenders, since it is now a crime scene, but Yuki disappears at the same time. Raven comments that they don't need to look for the clown, as there was a mission to capture those criminals. While so, Yuki hides behind some boxes, thinking that he deceived everyone and that no one knows who he is, until Duke passes by and tells him to come out of hiding, saying that he knows that he is the Black Swordsman. Yuki responds that he doesn't know anyone with that name and that he was born with a sword and a helmet, so he has always been known as the Black Swordsman. Duke tells him to stop being. He cringes, since that is shameful both for him and for others, and says that it is past time to return to normal. With that, Duke leaves, warning that if Yuki continues acting like that anyway, Celium could end up with Ike, from whom no man is safe. After Duke leaves, Yuki takes off his helmet to reflect on what he just heard, but when he looks in the mirror in front of him, he is immediately embarrassed when he realizes that he looks like he is in Sword Art Online that night. He returns to the guild without the costume, head down and full of shame. He collects the reward and asks Kleeman what the hell was wrong with those strange thieves. Kleeman explains that they used to be normal adventurers, but one day they entered a dungeon and found a weird magical book. Since then, they started acting strangely, becoming obsessed with destroying Valentine's Day and stealing all the chocolates so no one could get their hands on them. The next morning, Valentine's Day finally arrives, and Yuki immediately checks himself in the mirror to make sure he looks good. Hearing a knock on the door, he rushes to open it, hoping to find Celia, but comes face to face with Tio, dressed as a maid and holding a box of chocolates. She simply pushes Yuki aside, enters the room, goes to the gargoyle and begins to feed it with her own hands. Yuki wonders if she should look up the gargoyle's name in the Epstein. With this in mind, he goes to the guild hoping that something interesting is happening there. He is greeted by Kleiman, who arrives with a box full of chocolates made by Sophia A. herself. Box glows when he opens it. He takes a bite and describes the taste as divine, but tells Yuki that he won't get anything. Angry, Yuki claims that he will get even better chocolates and leaves cursing Kleiman. He goes to find Duke just as the knight appears with a box of chocolates and hands it to Duke, saying that he has always been a great help at work. Duke, he tries to keep his distance so as not to get involved, but this only makes Yuki even more angry, who leaves there cursing Duke for receiving chocolates. As he passes through the facility, he sees a door ajar, and upon peeking, he finds Raven and Harp inside. Realizing that Harp also brought chocolates for Raven, he leaves muttering curses and decides to walk through the city, but this only makes things worse, since everyone is celebrating Valentine's Day, walking happily with their girlfriends, while he is alone in the world. To make matters worse, Yuga has a huge line of women waiting to meet him, delivering chocolates. This makes him even angrier. When he turns around, he ends up bumping into Mika, who also has a box of chocolates for Yuga. He asks her if she's going to deliver the gift now, but Mika is intimidated by the huge line and decides that she won't give her box to Yuga, thinking that it might not be good enough. Before she can leave, Yuga calls her, saying that he was waiting for her chocolates. Mika is extremely happy and hands him a literal piece, who eats it contentedly, but is soon overwhelmed by the crowd of girls in line. Tired and defeated, Yuki returns to Celia's mansion, but discovers that she is in town. Fortunately, her mother hands her a small bag of chocolates. However, before he can take advantage of them, Duke appears running and warns that the thieves and their leader, Envy, have escaped from prison and are causing chaos in the city. They run back to the city and find Envy and his cronies on top of a monstrous earth monster, walking through the streets and destroying all the chocolates they find. When Yuga tells him to stop, Envy becomes furious and starts talking like an incel. Saying that sheds like him get all the girls, leaving nothing for the others, he tries to crush them, but Yuga manages to push Mika out of the way, saving Yuki. The Yuga to save people while he holds those in heaven. He climbs to the top of a building and starts acting like an anime protagonist, announcing that their end is near. He tries to convince them that he is in the same boat as them, only a little better, since he got chocolate from a hot mom. Envy responds that he is not at all relatable, and tries to crush him with the monster. Yuki dodges and climbs onto the creature while his companions try to attack him, but he easily defeats them, taking them down one by one. Envy then takes the magic book and starts throwing fireballs at Yuki and manages to dodge, until the two enter into a direct confrontation, trying to overpower each other's fire magic. This time, Envy gets the upper hand and knocks Yuki to the ground. The monster then begins to suck all the chocolates into his body, leading Raven to draw his sword to cut the creature, but Mika stops him, saying that the monster could explode and hurt people nearby. Curious, Yuki uses her electrical magic to burn Envy's book, destroying the monster and freeing Envy from the magical influence Yuga secures mid-fall, and discovers that Envy was a girl all along. It turns out that she hated Valentine's Day because boys didn't pay attention to her. Yuga then charms her, saying that he would love to receive the box from her too, resolving the whole situation until Yuki has a happy ending when Celia hands him a package of cookies and a special chocolate cake made specifically for him, and this is where the video ends.